This is the start of the conversation of the most remote IT administrator that I know, or that anybody will know, unless they're administering from the moon.
Communications technician.
Communications technician. Well, that's your title there, but I'm saying your title here is...
Oh, director of engineering and IT, glorified janitor.
Exactly. So Tony
A man
is...
of all trades.
So, I mean, I got you down, you're the broadcast engineer and IT director of Leighton Broadcasting. Or Leighton, what do did they rename themselves already? It's not Leighton Broadcasting, it's Leighton.
No. Well, technically Leighton Enterprises, which includes Leighton Broadcasting, Leighton Radio Holdings, blah, blah, blah.
Wow, you blah, blah, blah to your own company.
Well, Vale, Magnetic Sparks, Leighton Events, Leighton Engage.
Racetrack, can't forget the racetrack.
Yeah, no. We sold the racetrack.
You sold the racetrack. I didn't hear about that.
City Speedway. Yep.
You don't keep me up to date on what's going on.
Well, that's because we're too busy solving IT problems and making the world go.
All right. So the main question I have is, what has given you the confidence to take this endeavor to Antarctica and let NetVPro handle all your IT infrastructure needs?
Because I'm crazy.
That's not the right answer.
PR.
I mean, okay, let's separate them. Let's put the crazy part aside that you're going to Antarctica. Let's focus on currently, what is NetVPro doing for you in your current environment of IT infrastructure?
Well, they are offering moral and physical support of my network and my users, so that's always a good thing. But basically, just IT solutions and good working buddies.
That's all right. Good working buddies. We'll go with that.
That's a high compliment. I mean, no,
it is.
And NetVPro though, what are they doing for me? It's much easier to just say what aren't they doing for me, which is basically they do everything. So no, as far as for that, that's currently what's in the environment. We work together as a team. So I mean, it's one of those things that NetVPro has a separate relationship from other companies in the sense that it is very much so a team integration as opposed to a overseeing network management company. So NetVPro integrates within my team of myself and my other contract people that I have for on the RF engineering side and stuff, and essentially works as part of my team along with me. So that's the biggest thing that NetVPro brings to the table is that team management. So a lot of the IT stuff that you would expect an IT company gets taken care of, along with the higher level stuff like our 1 year visions, our 5 year visions, our CapEx planning for IT upgrades and maintaining that our upgrade schedule stays on task. And long-term plans like that, which is something that comes from a team-based company, more so than an IT management company, because they're not out to sell you the solution. They're out to work the solution and make it work right within the company itself. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's very much so a hyper-customized solution, with IT. I mean, I don't know what the hell to tell you. I mean, you guys are really good at what you do. I mean, it's transparent, which probably leads me into the reason why am I leaving to go to Antarctica and letting NetVPro take over a lot of that stuff is for exactly what I said. I mean, they're part of my team. You really can't differentiate NetVPro from the Leighton Broadcasting and the Leighton Enterprise team at all because it's so integrated that we work well with each other. And priorities are taken on by both sides. So that's the biggest thing. I mean, what it is.
So, well, when you're in Antarctica, I
Yes.
mean, what pieces scare you, or what pieces do you feel confident about?
Well, I'm gonna be flying on an airplane. That scares me. Not really, but no, there's nothing that scares me or leads me down apprehension. I mean, it's one of those things that
So,
IT
a normal person would be apprehensive about, let's just say, we would be trying to.
or something like that. Yeah, and that's the biggest difference between a relationship built with NetV Pro and I think other IT managed companies is that there really isn't any apprehension in what's going on, because the term "I've got a guy for that" is really the fact of the matter with you guys. I mean, I think that's one thing that as I'm going, I kind of look back and go, well, our backup's going to be taken. Well, it's like, well, no, John's already on that. Is network issues going to be taken? It's like, well, no, Dustin checks on this stuff. And it's kind of like, at the end of the day, I really got to worry about, where to sleep and what to eat more so than anything else. That's going to be my IT problems. And hopefully, my internet works and my computer fires up for me personally. But as far as for leaving the homestead, and letting you guys deal with it, it's not really an issue. I mean, it's really one of the things that I'm more worried about. Are we going to have a storm while I'm gone? And just making sure all those puzzle pieces are in place. On the radio side, I mean, IT has kind of come up where it's like, well, what are we doing for this? And it's like, well, we've already got this, going on. And it's like, one of the questions I get asked by management is do we have somebody that can handle this IT issue, or do we understand the way it is? And I think due to the dynamic relationship that we've built over the many years, we've kind of worked together to have those safeguards already well in place, to where I can leave, and there's really not much loss in continuity. There's not much loss in workflow. There's not a change in workflow. I mean, the only difference is I'm not going to be here, but it doesn't change the workflow that we've come up with. We've mentored a philosophy and workflow that lends itself to being that if something were to happen to me outside of Antarctica and I just disappeared, for whatever reason, the company would still succeed without me, especially in the IT side. And I think the best philosophy that we've always kind of stood by is I'm not here to hold the keys. I'm here to work myself out of a job. And if I'm at that point where I don't have to worry about this stuff, we're succeeding on all levels and we're working with the right individuals on all levels. So, as for leaving, I mean, there's nothing there. I mean, it's not going to affect the process. We've got the good people there and we've got everything established, and it changes nothing.
I have no comment to that.
Oh, I like the good stuff. Good
I
stuff.
like, I'm like, oh yeah. No, that's awesome. No, I'm really glad we are able to be the company and business and people that you wanted to work with and have the opportunity to get. I'm super excited about your trip to Antarctica. I mean, that's just amazing to even comprehend that you'll be there. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I hopefully we can continue these conversations when you're there. I mean, it's part of the purpose of, I think the interest will be is your experiences when you're there of what's happening. I've already YouTubed, Antarctica, you know, what people go through when they're there, and it's like it's almost like another world.
Well, it's gonna be a new way of doing technology. I mean, granted, I'll have my hands in quite a bit of different things, but it'll be a different way of doing things, and it'll be interesting to see how things are done down there, with other jobs that you would typically see around here, and how other people do their work and stuff. I mean, we're a little bit more spoiled because we're from Minnesota, so and you're from Wisconsin and stuff. So this we're used to a little bit more of the cold weather than the people down south. So I mean, a lot of the stuff probably won't be overly surprising, but it'll be different. And that's kind of the
Yeah,
interest.
the negatives are in an astronomical number. When they're talking -70, that's a whole nother number to even comprehend.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I've been in Wisconsin down, north of Madison and stuff when it was -50 and stuff. And I mean, yeah, we've all had the time to experience it at some duration. And I mean, I've been out in North Dakota, during the winter when the winds start hitting and there ain't a tree around and stuff, and those winds go pretty good for a good long time. So I mean, there will be that kind of weather, but like I said, I mean, if you're from Texas or something and you've never been in the Midwest in a winter and stuff like that, I mean, doing something as simple as let's say, just a telco splice. These guys go out and during the winter it's 70 degrees out and they're going, hoofda, it's cold out. As opposed to you're a technician in the middle of a snowstorm and some copper line goes down, you're having to do your work in some pretty unforgiving conditions. And it's it'll be interesting. And like I said, not because it's going to be like a whole different world per se, but it's going to be a different environment to just see how technology handles. I mean, one of the biggest things that they warn you about going down to McMurdo Base is hard drives, and it being a desert environment, believe it or not. And the failure rates of hard drives down there, especially spindle ones and stuff like that, that it's kind of like, well, if you're coming down here, expect to back your data up on at least 2 to 3 different devices, because we end up with about 60, I think it was 67, 68 hard drives die uh, during their winter deployments and stuff on average. And you're looking at a maximum of 200 people there. So it literally is almost a 50% chance of failure down there. Now, I mean, obviously, different users, different principles, so they're probably walking around with thumb drives in their pocket and stuff like that. But it's just an interesting environment for technology to exist in and stuff. Um, and I think one of the most fantastic things that I still find interesting, though, about Antarctica in its principle is that we live in a world where, I mean, literally, technology has made the human existence easy. I mean, and it's only going to get easier. But if you think about it, Alexa integration into light bulbs and stuff like that. I in my house, I don't know. I can't remember the last time I flipped a switch. I just walk into a room and say, Alexa, turn on, the kitchen lights, and they turns on, and all this stuff. I mean, same thing even with some of our appliances and stuff. And the Nest thermostat and things like that, where it's like, the going to a wall and mechanically doing stuff doesn't really exist in today's homes, and it's only going to get crazier. You never know. But with Antarctica, there's a certain realm of kicking it back to the Western Union days and stuff like that, in the fact that there's a logistical dampening field on how much technology, what you can actually bring in. Also, the limitations of today's technology, which we don't see much of, but being at a polar region, it's harder to get satellites. It's harder to get, high-speed internet. So when you're at home and you're cooking at 1 gigabit, I mean, down at McMurdo, it's 17 megabits shared among, at times, 2,000 people. Um, so there's that kind of technology limitations that people, I don't think, realize. During the winter when I'm going to be there, there's going to be a span of times where, I mean, they can't fly in. I mean, the airport's closed, and it's not we're just closing it down due to staffing or, whatever. It's logistically, you just can't land an aircraft there due to winds, due to weather, due to temperature, due to a million different reasons, where, I mean, it's not even a trade-off anymore of, okay, there's a 3% possibility of landing. There's 0% chance of that aircraft getting back off the ice and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of that kind of interest when you start getting into like the aviation side and the nerd side and things like that, that how far technology has reached. But when you start getting into some of these areas, like Antarctica, where it's like the technology reach is minimal even today. I think a real kickback was when you start looking at like the Dragon capsule and the exploration of going back to the moon and exploration of Mars and stuff like that. Where, I mean, you go back to the Apollo days, and using the bathroom was a big ordeal just based upon, we only have this technology. We only have this technology. It's not really thing. To where, I mean, with the space shuttle, it changed. But now today, you fast forward 30 years later and the technology is there where it's like, oh, yeah, no, we can do vacuum pressure and all this other stuff. And, well, what about radars and loss of contact and stuff like that? And they're like, oh, yeah, no, we've got all these solutions in place. Oh, we put it on a Pi, a Raspberry Pi. And it's like, what? And then you go down to Antarctica and you realize that it's like, holy cow, this is some exploration, but it's still on Earth. But it's amazing the lack of technology reaching down there. Now, I mean, it's getting better every time, but there's still the feasibility of, you can only bring so much stuff down there. There's rules and regulations on what you can do and what you can't do that are internationally agreed, because, there's people that just go, well, they run diesel generators down there. We'll just throw nuclear power down there. It's nothing wrong with that. And granted, the Navy did it back in the day, but they ended up taking it out because it was just too much of an environmental hazard. And really, do you want nuclear down there? As opposed to, if you look at the Voyager spacecraft are using, a nuclear power plant essentially. And stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting how Antarctica has still posed kind of a challenge for exploration and technology. And I think that's going to be the most interesting part, is to work within those confines of not having that, hey, Alexa, turn on my lights in my room. Oh, shoot, I've got a switch. That's right. I got to flip the switch, and stuff like that. Or realize that, oh, after a long day of work, well, I'm going to go watch Netflix here and stream, and then realization that it's like, oh, that's right. Each one of us don't have a 1 gig fiber connection to Antarctica, and stuff like that. So, I think that's going to be the interesting point, is seeing some of those limitations and just working around it. And I mean, it's possible. It obviously is possible, or we wouldn't be doing it. But it's going to be, I think, everybody focuses on the climate part of it, and I think that's important. But I think the biggest thing for like nerds like us is going to be the expression of technology down there, and how do you really work within those confines?
Yeah, no, I like I said, that brings up the question of how often you can get a resupply and what can even be on a resupply. We were just talking about Amazon a minute ago and the same day delivery. There is no same day delivery.
No, you're working with the military postal system. So, I mean, there's different priorities to different packages, what they can carry. I mean, case in point, when I go, I'm limited to 86 pounds of carry-on, and that's it. And then, or not carry-on, but check baggage, and then like 15 pounds of carry-on. So, I mean, when you start quantifying it, and I'll tell you what, there's been 2 times where I've started packing my bag and I'm like, this isn't bad, and then you start weighing the bag and you go, I gotta live 9 months without my, this or that or things like that. And I mean, yeah, one of the things that, as I prepare forward going on some of this stuff, is like my iTunes library, right? I want to be able to bring all the videos and stuff down there with me, which
right.
seems sensible. Yeah, I mean, I can't stream, but I can download locally to my hard drive the iTunes videos and whatnot. And as you start going, well, I'll just grab one of these bad boys here, grab one of my big old honking, storage device guys. Ain't no big thing. That's you start lifting it up and you go, well, that spindle drive weighs quite a bit of weight, and that's going to mean now that I got to bring something less. Now I got to leave a GoPro home and 3 extra batteries because I have to compensate for that spindle space. So, now it's okay, I need to look at flash media. Well, knowing the environment, sometimes flash media and static electricity don't work so well. Not, I mean, it just doesn't. So now you're starting to look at, well, I'm going to have at least probably 2 flash drives just to make sure I have a backup of what I'm bringing. And now you're looking at size restrictions as like that spindle drive I just showed you. That's 14 terabytes of space. Try getting that on flash easy. So now, it kind of runs into where, that's a limitation of technology before you even get on the ice out there, is that now you're having to go, well, okay, how do I press modern technology in order to be able to do what I want and not have to carry, 6 pounds of hard drive with me as opposed to a half a pound of flash media, and stuff like that. So it is interesting, even from the packing side, as you start looking through the stuff where it's like, I would kill to bring 2 laptops down, but at the end of the day, when you look at the weight, it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
2 laptops equal a couple pair, half dozen pair of underwear or something. Pretty
right.
important items.
Do I need that extra, set of thermal underwear, or do I need the laptop? Well, the laptop can keep me warm if it's plugged in, and stuff like that. But I mean, it really is interesting when you start going, okay, here's what I have to bring. And like you touched on, is clothes and stuff like that. There are certain requirements we have to meet, with bringing down like thermal socks and, stuff like that. That quickly start taking room up in the bag. And now when you start getting to, I walk around every day with my iPhone. Now, granted, I'm not going to have cell phone coverage down there, but there will still be data. But I'm not used to not walking around with my dang iPhone and stuff like that. So once you start looking at some of those technology components that you use every day and start putting them in the old weight bag to see where you're heading, you start realization that it's like, hey, I'm probably not going to be able to bring my portable Bluetooth speaker with the battery in it that weighs 3 pounds. Now I'm going to have to be stuck with, AirPods or something like that. And the kind of consideration of technology in that sense, where it's like, okay, you're going to have to start making some trade-offs. And it kind of puts you in through that process of, where, I mean, there will be some, ability to communicate back and stuff like that and, things like that. But it's like, what do I personally need to survive in a technology full world? And now I'm going into a different world. And what can I cut out without, going crazy, if you will, where it's a everyday convenience. And now you're finding you have to leave it, back at home. And I mean, I'm over dramatizing it to some degree.
No, but you're not. But you're not. Honestly, you're not. I mean,
No, I
it's
mean,
a true story. I mean, your sanity has a calculation of what what you're used to, and and that change of how you want to live. And
and it's something that, I mean, there are people that finally realize what they can bring down and just go, I can't adjust to this. This is just
well,
not possible.
yeah, and I did see that they have like a music room, so you could take up music while you're there.
Yeah, but I mean, even a lot of those things. I mean, it's hard to get stuff down, and now you can mail stuff down. So I mean, there is that as an option, but the other part to all this is you got to realize that you're going through international mail system. So even though it's still military, the mail's processed in New Zealand and goes through New Zealand customs. And New Zealand has some very different rules in place on technology and importing and stuff like that, that it's not like you can just simply, mail this through and it's going to be just fine. I mean, it goes through, I guess, and I guess it's probably not, uncommon. I mean, hell, this is my first like international off the continent travel. I've only been to Canada and they were pretty friendly, but I mean, as you go into these kind of different parts, I mean, data security, data integrity. Are you really going to mail a laptop down there? Are you going to mail a hard drive down there? And what condition is it going to be in when it gets there? What does customs have? Can they hold the hard drive and go, we suspect this may have data on it that we need, and I don't mean it nefarious. I just mean an international cooperation for what they have to do. There's a lot of that stuff that come up in this question. So, I mean, simply mailing a piece of technology down there kind of comes with its own, fallacies. And, how is it going to get through? What can they do? What can't they do? And what general condition is it going to be in? I mean, you got to remember, this is not, a UPS flight. It's being brought in as cargo. So, and that's the technology side of things. I mean, it's, we live in, and I use the term we, I mean it as a worldwide society, but more specifically, us people that are integrated within technology, that work in technology every day. I think we have a much harder time letting technology go. I think we would all go, yeah, no, we'd go out in the backwoods and, shoot our own deer and we could live off the land. And while I think that that's true to a point, at the end of the day, I think we'd still be going, Alexa, turn on the kitchen lights. And you're going, oh, shoot, now I got to light a lantern and stuff. What is this? Where's the Alexa app for this? So, no, that's the parts that I think are going to be coming out as probably the most interesting parts is not so much the environment, but the adaptation to a different way of leveraging technology as a whole. I mean, I think there's going to be, obviously a consolidation on what I can bring, but as geeks or nerds, however you want to put it, we do pretty good at taking minimal technology and turning it into some exceptional technology. So it'll be interesting from that side what creative items I can come up with along the way.
Yeah, no, we'll have to have another recording on what you actually end up packing because now I'm curious of what you can get down to.
So would that be a packing video instead of an unpacking video? I would break the technology world with a concept like that. We're making a packing video today. Wait, no, it's supposed to be unpacking. You guys. Oh shoot. Anyways, but yes, no, it's going to be an interesting. It's going to be an interesting endeavor. Like I said, I'm not so much worried about the climate portion as I am, just in the difference of technology, different way I'm going to have to wake up in the morning.
I can imagine just thinking about, taking 8 hours to download a tool from Google, because I'm into Rumble. I don't know if you ever heard of Rumble. It's pretty freaking awesome, and it enumerates somebody's network in an instant, and it's like, well, I would want that tool. I would want all these tools wherever I'm going.
And it is going to be interesting. I mean, even, workflow like that. But I mean, even if you think your human side workflow, like in the morning, you probably wake up, check LinkedIn, check, maybe Facebook, maybe hit TikTok up a little bit, before you stretch and get out of bed and stuff. And it's like, you're not going to have that luxury of waking up and, seeing, well, what changed in the past 2 hours while I was asleep, that instant world access. I mean, there's world access there, but it's not like they have Wi-Fi everywhere. That's another concept that's interesting. Is there's Wi-Fi only available in certain parts of the station, and it's very much so regulated, so they don't allow personal devices on wireless. So really, you're kind of going down there with your cell phone as a clock and a camera. That's basically what your cell phone is. I mean, you might as well shut her off and put her in airplane mode so you're not burning, a battery trying to search for a cell phone network or a wireless, because it ain't going to happen. So, and that's going to be an interesting concept too. That, I mean, I'm going to be living and dying by a laptop that's plugged in to an Ethernet cable.
Ethernet cable? What?
Yep. That's how they make you do it. So it is going to be interesting. It'll be fun. I'll probably be happy to come back and have my Wi-Fi and stuff like that again. It will take me a week to adapt back to normal life.
At least.
Yeah, where my wife will be like, "Why are you hitting the light switch? You know not to do that." Well, I'm so used to it, So anyways.